Welcome back. The Portfolio Committee on Higher Education is calling on stakeholders in the sector to bring their heads together. The committee says it's concerned about ongoing protests at various institutions of higher learning. The protest that erupted at Cape Peninsula University of Technology this week left buildings and vehicles damaged. This over the threat by NSFAS to defund undeserving students. Meanwhile, at the University of Western Cape, classes had to move online amid protests over safety concerns for students. Now let's bring in Tebogo Letsi, member of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsnight. Now, we are aware that a letter was submitted, but besides writing to the university's Vice-Chancellor, what else is the committee doing to get to the bottom of the ongoing problem through your oversight responsibilities?
Good morning to you, Abigail, and the listeners at home. Maybe I think the first thing we must do is to clarify what is the role of Parliament generally. That Parliament is an oversight body that overlooks or does oversight on the department and the different entities. And in our case, as the Higher Education, Science and Innovation Portfolio Committee, universities are part and parcel of the institution that we do oversight on over and above the department. So our role generally is to, do an oversight and after effect, so to speak. So yes, we have on Tuesday written to the university to provide us with what is happening at that institution. And they did respond to us on Friday, yesterday afternoon, detailing about 5 or 6 issues that the students are crying about or are fighting about at that institution. But over and above that, on Wednesday, we had a meeting with NSFAS where we were dealing with their APPs and their revised strategic plan. And we did ask them to provide, solutions or answers as to what is really happening at these institutions.
Mm-hmm. And it does appear that NSFAS is often at the center of problems that students are experiencing at various universities that lead to these protests. Surely they must also be asked to be held accountable for their role. What is being done to ensure that issues related to NSFAS are being dealt with and that they aren't recurring?
Yeah, maybe before answering that question, we must make a point that NSFAS is a great initiative by government. And maybe I must also give a background that not so long ago, in 2015, NSFAS had a budget of about 5 billion rands. And in this financial year, NSFAS has a budget of 47 billion rands. What does that mean is that this government has created an opportunity for many students, to have access to institutions of higher learning. Creation of this access, comes with challenges themselves. And I thought that's the first point I needed to make. Indeed, there seems to be a number of challenges related to NSFAS or a relationship between problems at our institutions and NSFAS. And we have, over time, attended to, get NSFAS to have their house in order for them to respond to, appeals of students on time, for them to disperse money to students on time and to universities as well. The problem that they keep bringing to us almost all the time is that the systems that are being used at universities and their own systems seems to have a system miscommunication. So some institutions don't send information or the registration data of students to NSFAS on time, and as such, NSFAS is unable to disperse some of this, disbursements on time. You are aware that a few weeks ago, SIU released a report that in the few years back, NSFAS would have funded to the tune of over 5 billion rand to students who were not eligible to get funding from NSFAS. And this is precisely because of what I'm talking about, the miscommunications of systems between NSFAS and universities. And we have asked them to prioritize dealing with that problem. So NSFAS, from where they are now, they are unable to, in some instances, disburse funds because they don't know whether this child qualifies or is registered or is not registered. And those that are being paid by universities, the universities are unable to disburse to them because maybe the children or the students have appealed and there's no appeal decisions on them. So the problems indeed seems to come from this systematic error between NSFAS and our institutions.
Mr. Letsie, we are 5 months into the year, and obviously this has a huge impact on the program for the year when it comes to institutions of higher learning. Are there concerns that this is obviously going to negatively affect students? What are we doing to sort of mitigate that? Because students need to complete the year. So how do we ensure that students are going to be able to focus and have some sort of relief that the issues will be dealt with?
No, thanks, Abigail. Look, indeed, we are 5 months into the year, but most importantly, we're a few weeks before the exams. And in these 5 months, or a few weeks before exams, there are students who have not received allowances for food. So the assumption should be that they've not eaten since at the beginning of the year, and we'll be expecting them to go and write exams now. Whilst psychologically they may not be in the right state of mind. So it's a serious concern for us, and this is what we sharply raised with NSFAS on Wednesday, that they must get their house in order between themselves and the universities, because the people who are suffering here are indeed the students. So we're extremely concerned about that. But I think we must also make a point that even though we understand the plight of these students, we must condemn with the strongest possible, way the torching of our buildings and infrastructure in our institutions of higher learning. I think students as well must understand that even though we understand their frustrations, we're always on their side, but it's very difficult to be on the side of somebody who then, out of frustration, commits a criminal, offense in banning, destroying infrastructure of the institution, destroying infrastructure for future students at those institutions. So that one, we felt that it's important that we must also, condemn strongly. NSFAS must get their house in order, urgently, between themselves and universities. Indeed, we'll be expecting a response, a positive response as to what is happening there, but what are the solutions? What is it that they are going to do urgently in making sure that students are ready for examinations? And what this social psycho support.
Indeed. Well, we hope to have you back on to chat to us once there has been some resolution and a way forward. But we thank you for your time, Mr. Letsie. Thank you for joining us here on ENCA this evening. That was Tebogo Letsie, member of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, just talking to us about some of the concerns students have with various universities as well as NSFAS and why those protests have been ongoing. And hopefully shortly we will have a solution so that students can focus on their academic year. But we are